The single largest ethnic group in Boston is the Irish. Between the 19th and 20th centuries, largely due to increased political participation, Irish Catholics have gone from one of the most discriminated groups to one of the city's most influential, with lasting cultural impact in the city's educational and political spheres, sports life, and more. In the 21st century, however, it's been widely recognized that the Catholic Church does not have as much influence in the daily life of Boston Irish Catholics as it once did. Yet the current generation still recognizes Boston Irish Catholic as a shared cultural persona. For example, many Irish still identify as Democrats, even while they've grown comparatively more socially conservative. Durkheim's theory of religion can explain why some of the outdated notions and rituals of this group still persist in the current generation. The potato famine in the 19th century caused a major migration to America, which for the Irish meant confronting massive discrimination. This century-long history of destitution resulted in what could be called a national inferiority complex, a shared mental category solidified by the cumulative mistreatment. It also produced a mental category of resilience that would manifest itself in both characteristics and rituals of Irish Catholic, as noted in the excerpt above of one Irish Catholic's experience. This ostracism influenced Irish Catholic social interactions and affected their rituals accordingly. They carved out niche spheres for themselves that solidified and reinforced their identity based on their shared understanding. For instance, labor unions in association with the Democratic Party reflected working class status. Catholic schools reflected fear of forced Protestant assimilation, and even pubs reflect the heavy drinking that was so common during times of famine. These rituals amplified the shared mental categories. As Durkheim said, the ideal world, in this case the specific Irish Catholic identity, is a natural product of social life. These rituals produce cognitive bonds that explain the persistence of Irish Catholic culture today. As Durkheim explains, thus the collective ideal which religion expresses is far from being due to a vague innate power of the individual, but it is rather at the school of collective life that the individual has learned to idealize. Today, church attendance rates are dropping, and further, many Irish Catholics are third and fourth generation and therefore are far removed from the discriminated status of their ancestors. Yet the Catholic guilt, inferiority, hardship, and other sentiments, reinforced by insular rituals for over a century, have become internalized. This interview, where he knows not to go to the Protestant YMCA, is an example of that. Durkheim can elaborate on this once more. He says, "The life thus brought into being even enjoys so great an independence that it sometimes indulges in manifestations with no purpose or utility of any sort, for the mere pleasure of affirming itself." Durkheim's theory explains the contradictions in the Boston Irish Catholic culture today, such as the enduring sense of persecution even as they control the city politically and have a huge St. Patrick's Day parade thrown every year. This theory can show that rituals aren't always a means to an end within themselves, but rather used to reinforce cultural ideals that created the ideal world.